It is Star Trek Hour, thankfully.
Right? Star Trek Day. That's a different one from that.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Ooh, fancy. Joe's lit up beautifully, by the way. You look so fabulous.
A lot. Thank you. I had to. There's tricks. There's light behind me. I had to fix the white. This thing all crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and I'm Terry, if y'all don't know, as the name beneath my head, the floating name. I'll just motion about here, and we'll say that. So just so for the folks who are, not necessarily as familiar with us, Joe, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let people know your Star Trek cred, yo.
My name's Joe Sandow, and I was a software engineer, and now I'm kind of not for a while. But I got into this. I like Twitter.
Awesome. Well, and I'm Terry, if y'all don't know, as the name beneath my head.
Is that my thing or your thing?
I'm hearing it on you.
Yeah,
about
it's always me.
and we'll say that. You gotta mute that box, yo. Who are? There we go. That's better. We're good. We're good.
I'm sorry. I can't seem to do this right. Every time. There was one more. It was my other browser. Okay. Let's start again. So my name is Joe, and I run some Twitter accounts about Star Trek, like Card Tips and Riker Googling and a bunch of other ones. And Terry had this idea to do this Twitter thing where we talk about Star Trek for an hour with a hashtag. And I was like, hey, Terry, can I help? She was like, okay.
Dude, you know what, though? It's just like, I need someone to like basically boss me around about this stuff. Like, this is like a track record of mine. Like, my Vita fell apart after like day 14 or something. I got laryngitis and like I couldn't speak for like 10 days.
Because I want to ask you all about your Vita.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's exciting.
Who are you?
My name is Terry. I make videos on YouTube about a variety of things, mostly toy soldiers and spaceships. And when I say spaceships, I have to say it like spaceships. So I do that. So I make videos on YouTube. I sometimes do stuff on Twitter, but I'm not a Twitter celebrity like Joe over here.
The same number of followers. Actual accounts. I just invoke the face of Riker and the face of Picard, and that.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, but it's so genius. I mean, and I think that like I was a huge fan, like the hugest fan of Riker Googling before I even knew you, Joe. Like it's one of those things where I still recommend it to people now, and I'm like, you need to see this. If you don't know what this is, you need to see this. And they're like, what is it? And I'm like, what would Riker's search history look like? And they're like, and then I say, Vulcan porn stars under 100. And then people are like, oh, and they're all about it. And that's exactly what I mean. So
the only person who really doesn't seem to appreciate it is Jonathan Frakes.
The only person in this world who really doesn't appreciate it is Jonathan Frakes. I love that fact. So yeah.
And George Takei liked it. Likes the Picard tips. But
oh man,
everyone's always trying to get Jonathan Frakes to notice Riker Googling, and he is mum on the subject.
I love that.
It is not interesting to him, or at least it's not something worth commenting on. But that's okay.
Oh my gosh! But you know what? I think that's the best thing, right? Like, what's he gonna say? So I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Obviously, Joe is as well. And every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we spend some time on Twitter talking about an episode of Star Trek. It's like a book club, but kind of snarkier, with like the questions you wish you could ask. Like, why the hell is Q naked? And
without the book. It's just
without the book. It's so good. So yeah, and yeah, that's kind of what we do. If you found us,
in the last few months.
yeah, in the last 2 months, stumble across some of what we've been doing. That's pretty much it.
And
so
I was
yeah,
Terry before she was a fan of mine, and it was weird because she used to work on Geek and Sundry vlogs,
mhm.
doing all their like the board gaming and wargaming stuff, and I'm a huge board gamer, as you can see, and I was really into that. And then one day in the parking lot of Whole Foods, my phone said, Terry Latorco just responded to something you said. I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, oh my God, this is cool.
But yeah, you know what? I think that's how the helix of geekdom kind of flows in. By the way, I noticed you're drinking some wine there. What kind of wine are you drinking, Joe?
All right, so this wine has absolutely no wine in it whatsoever. This is blood wine. This is recipe number 1 from a website that I found listing a bunch of Star Trek cocktails from different websites, compiled from a whole bunch. I think it's from StarTrekOnline.com that this was made. And they describe this as very sweet. There are 3 recipes for blood wine. And I went for the first one, partly just because whatever. Start with the first one. But also because it said sweet, and I like stuff that's sweet. But I do want to tell you what's in it. It's really strong. It doesn't taste anything like wine. Does it look like wine?
It totally, well,
facsimile?
When you stick it in the glass, like, because of the glass and because it's red, it looks pretty wine-ish, but
so it's convincing-ish. It could be wine.
It's convincing-ish.
So this is blood wine Worf style, very sweet, from StarTrekOnline.com. I had to go to the
Worf style
for this. Worf style. I don't believe this is what Worf drinks, but this is what Star Trek Online drinks. 2 ounces of gin, 6 ounces of vodka, 6 ounces of Cointreau, which is an orange liqueur, 6 ounces of Midori, which is a melon. What's the melon? Honeydew melon liqueur. 2 ounces of grenadine to make it a little sweeter and redder, because the Midori, this is actually green, and then you mix a little bit of this red syrup in, grenadine, and it turns into like wine colors. Oh, that's cool. And then sliced watermelon, strawberries, and pitted cherries. Cherries are not in season, so I substituted raspberries. And I just diced them up and soaked them in there in this jug for an hour, and then strained it out.
It's like a sangria without the wine.
It's a sangria made of gin.
Dude, I'm like, look, I'm all about the gin. Like, can you see how big this bottle is next to my head? Like,
I was thinking of getting all my bottles, but there were like 8 to make this stuff. So this is drink number 1, and there's another one. Should I show you now?
Oh, you have a second drink?
While we're on the subject, now I forgot one ingredient, which is mint. And I kind of regret it because I think mint is really cool. But this is
Romulan ale.
No, Andorian, not Romulan.
Oh, Andorian ale.
Andorian ale. So the thing about Andorians is that they're Smurfs. They're blue skin, and they come from a blue planet, and they drink blue drinks, and they sing.
Is there only one girl on the entire planet? One
What?
girl, she's got blonde hair, like the Smurfs, you know, Smurfette.
Oh,
Only
right.
one girl.
Yeah, they only have one girl. She has blonde hair, and she wears a pretty white dress, and the rest is topless, and it's Planet Smurf. But actually, the Andorians got kind of interesting on Enterprise, which I still have more of Enterprise, but they're interesting. I thought they were just bad guys, but they turn out to be like a mix. Is my lip sync okay?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, good, because my screen's showing something else, but that's fine. The Andorian ale, also from StarTrekOnline.com, is 2 ounces of raspberry-flavored vodka, which is just something you buy in the store. Raspberry-flavored vodka, it's already blue. Like all raspberry-flavored candies and drinks are in the West for some reason. That's another Wikipedia article. Why are raspberry-flavored things blue? I don't know. And then 1 ounce of blue curacao. And blue curacao was, I have heard of blue curacao because I love cocktails and sweet drinks. And I didn't think it would be a big deal. Just go buy some blue curacao, whatever.
Mhm.
And I went to the grocery store, and then I went to a liquor store, and nobody has it. Nobody carries blue curacao.
Really?
And I ended up having, yeah, and they were like, I'll order it for you. I'm like, I think Bevmo will have it. So I finally went to Bevmo, and they had every kind of blue curacao, because Bevmo's amazing. Bevmo is Toys R Us for alcoholics. It's like
I love that.
just walking through, it's like, wow, if I drank more, this would be heaven.
See,
I even
I
cool little like double-sided cup to for measuring and pouring.
oh
Measuring cup
yeah,
for
yeah, I got a jigger.
the jigger, yeah, the fancy one.
Fancy. See, I am so jealous. Okay, first of all, I'm so jealous of you Americans and your liquor stores, because living in Canada, we just don't get the same things. It's not even comparable. I was in Montana a couple weekends ago, and I stopped at a gas station and bought clearance beer for 50 cents a can, which is like insane. Anyone who has ever done, yeah, I've never seen beer that cheap before. So it's just like, yeah, I'm super jealous. I don't know, there was like this beer they had that was like agave nectar based, that was aged in tequila barrels, that is so good. We can't get it here. Like, I'm so jealous. But you guys don't have Caesars, so like, can't buy Clamato off the shelf. So,
Where were you getting the cheap beer?
Montana.
Montana.
Super sketchy gas station.
No sales tax?
No sales tax. That they have, like, I don't know. Maybe there is a sales tax. It's buried under everything else. Like, they don't have any transparent sales tax, I should say, because I'm Canadian. I'm used to paying taxes.
My college roommate is from Montana. He said that the rules for speeding and reckless driving, because they don't have a speed limit, they just basically pull you over if you have out-of-state plates. That's the thing that you did wrong. You came here with out-of-state plates. So we're going to pull you over and say, you're driving too fast. How fast is too fast? It's as fast as I think it is. Sorry, sir. It's too fast. You're from
insane. Like, it's crazy. Like, it is totally amazing and crazy, and it's all, I did the thing where you eat at the Golden Corral, which is, I have to admit, like, I feel like Golden Corral is like the thing that is both, it is the embodiment of what is great and what is terrible about America, all in one place.
Tell me about the Golden Corral.
Okay, so the Golden Corral is a buffet franchise. I've seen them in Vegas. I've seen them in Montana. I've seen them in Pacific Northwest areas. It is a buffet of, like, ridiculous magnitude. There is pie, there is cake, there is, like, just the dessert section alone. Like, and I mean, like, it's a section. Like, I think I saw a Golden Corral ad that once said, burn calories getting your next plate, because it's such a big buffet. It's insane.
Right. Okay.
And it was $11.95.
Right.
I think I ate 3,000 calories for $11.95. And
was there a big thing of shrimp?
There's a huge thing. There was a guy who was grilling steaks to your liking. It was crazy. I was blown away by it. And yeah, it's kind of the perfect thing after like a weekend of roller derby where you're in like total calorie deficit. But
right.
Yeah, that's my adventure through America. But yeah, your stories.
I haven't talked to you in like 5 weeks. So
right.
What have you been doing? I want to talk about.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I tried to do Vita in April. I got about halfway through and then totally crashed and burned. I lost my voice.
Well, what's Vita?
Vita is Video Everyday April. So like the thing is you're supposed to release a video every day on YouTube in April. I got halfway through and now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, so I owe all of my subscribers 14 more videos. So I'm like, okay, so right now I'm working on like a whole slew of videos to release in the next, like before the end of May, including Star Trek Attack Wing videos. I've got like, I even told like a group, a Facebook group that I'm part of, that I was gonna slice open one of the Enterprise D figs that we have to try to make it so you can separate the saucer section from the base. So I've got that filmed. I've got to edit that down. I've got all these videos that I've got to release, and I'm gonna release them before the end of the month. So I've got another basically the idea is I'm gonna release another 14 videos in 14 days, pretty soon here, and it's gonna start probably tomorrow, because I've got the videos kind of starting to queue up again, and and kind of push him out. So that's the idea. But in the meantime, I decided like that was the worst thing is because I decided to also like pick the craziest bit like life month for me to do Vita in for the next little while because I'm between that and like doing I had like 2 roller derby tournaments to do. One was out of the country, so I crossed an international border while I was doing this and all this, and then I got laryngitis, which was like I don't know if you can still hear it now. I got this sweet smoky jazz voice. It's still not completely. Yeah, it's not. I sound like an 80-year-old woman when I really like am not trying to project. So like an 80-year-old smoker.
When she had
totally.
People were like, she was like, why do they keep telling me my voice sounds so sexy? I just have a
I just have this cold. Yeah, and so I lost my voice for about like the last like I don't know week and a half. Like we were supposed to do Star Trek Live last week, but I couldn't even. I could barely speak. It was so bad. So yeah, there's that. But my life has been a little calmer in the last few days. I'm settling back into the mood, getting some spaceship games in, which I am loving. By the way, Joe, it kills me in my heart that you're not playing Star Trek Attack Wing yet. You like all the board games. You should totally be playing Star Trek Attack
Wing. It's true.
It's great. Like I mean,
I wanted to ask you about that because you had a video about Star Trek Armada, and
yeah, Star Wars Armada. I unboxed it. I've been playing Star Trek Attack Wing for the last. My God.
Compared to Star Wars X-Wing and Star Wars Armada board games.
Okay. So here's the thing. If you're a competitive player, you will probably like X-Wing more because there's only 2 factions. It's not hard to balance 2 factions.
What if you're
Star
not
Trek
a player and you just like to live
Star
in
Trek? If you're not exactly, if you're not a competitive player, Star Trek Attack Wing is the superior game by far. If you love Star Trek, it is an incredible game. If you love Star Trek and you're not super interested in like smashing skulls, you just want to play like I wonder what it would be like to have Benjamin Sisko and Gul Dukat and Damar on the same Klingon ship and see how that goes. That you can do that. That is totally doable, and it's something that can happen, and I'm really excited to play those games and play those scenarios, and that's the sort of thing that you can totally do playing Star Trek Attack Wing. Because there are so many options. That's the thing. The game relies very heavily on playing, I don't know, options. Like there are so many boosters available. Like just to give you a sense of what it is, the game has like I think there are 4 different versions of Worf in the game right now. Just because they capture Worf at different times in his life, and each Worf has a different kind of like ability set and that sort of thing. Like so there's different kinds of Worfs out there. There are different cards out there. You know, there are.
Because I saw one of your videos about Star Trek Attack Wing recently. I think it was Attack Wing, Star Trek Attack Wing, and it was you showed the cards. You were like focusing on like what the stats were on each card, and I instantly lost. I was instantly like, you have to know how the game works to recognize that these numbers are really.
Yeah, you kind of do.
And I get that. I mean, that's like Zombicide or any other game with cards and stats. But it was, it wasn't a tutorial at the beginning of the game. It was like, here's something new. That's the cards, and but I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell right away if it was like, I just haven't played X-Wing. I've seen it. I used to work at Netflix and I saw people playing it in the cafeteria. They just had it out on the big table, and they were, and I just like hovered around like it was a game store, like.
So
it's interesting, but I haven't done the measuring thing.
It's not hard. Like that's the thing is you buy the box and all the rulers essentially are in there, and then you pick up whatever expansions of ships you want with the crew and the captains you kind of want in that box, which is kind of nice. It's not like blind. It's not like say buying a pack of Magic where you're like maybe I'll get what I want. Yeah. You know exactly what's in the pack, and you can pick up whichever packs you kind of want.
It's like the base set, and then because you're always buying more ships, or I don't know, maybe you have like some deals to get them for
Oh
unboxing.
God, I buy so many ships.
So it's like, what is it, like $15 a ship and stuff?
Yeah, about $13 to $15 a ship. But like when I tell, and I play with guys who play with like, they own. I know guys who own like every ship that has ever been released and some multiples. I know guys who own like 5 ships. They're like, I like these 5 ships. I like the crew on these ships, and then I like these 3 ships, and these are the ones I play with. And
Oh, you played
because
with Ensign Kim,
yeah, I totally did. So I played
and you let him
with Garrett.
win. You gave him prepared. You gave him the Enterprise, and you
I
played.
did. I played the Ferengi ship, which of course got blown up because that's normal. Because that's what actually happened. But it's really fun because it's kind of like, and I talk about this a little bit. It's kind of like role playing, because each of the cards and like, let me see like each of the cards has an ability on them that harkens to a characteristic element of a specific of that specific character. So, for example, the Kirk Captain, the big Captain Kirk card, the one that everyone kind of takes, he's got like this tricky ability where you can like hide ability cards underneath him, and you can like pull them out. It's kind of like a cheat death kind of thing. Like he pulls all this stuff out of his back pocket, and so the way you play that in the game is you have secret upgrades that your opponent doesn't know about. He knows that you have them because he knows you're Trixie, because Captain Kirk is Trixie, but he doesn't know what they are. And when you find it opportune to play them, you play them.
You played Star Trek Catan, right?
Pardon? I haven't. No, I haven't played Star Trek Catan.
Star Trek Catan is cool. I don't even like original series that much, honestly. It's not for me, but it's but you know, I love that it spawned all the rest of the Star Treks, and so I have an admiration for, especially for Spock, but you know, for McCoy and Kirk and everybody else. And I wish they would do a next generation version of that, but they took Settlers of Catan and they added, not only replaced all the thematic stuff, so like sources of things like deuterium and oxygen and tritanium, and you just have to remember that tritanium is green, deuterium is yellow, and oxygen is white. Basically, you just start saying green and yellow and white and blue.
Just like in Catan.
It's like in Catan, where you have like 10 names for each resource. And then the ships and the planets or not the space stations and all that stuff, and that's all like just redone as art. But then they also add in these cards that let you override the traditional rules, and you basically are one of the characters from the original series at any one time. And you can use that power twice, and then you have to trade the card in and get a different card, be a different character, and each character can break the rules in a different way. And so there are things you can't really do in Catan. Like one of them can move a road, which in Star Trek Catan is represented by a spaceship, a little Enterprise, which they call a distribution route. I don't know. I forgot. Someone in the comments can tell me what it's called. But it keeps you constantly thinking wanting to read all these 12 cards and wanting to know which of them you want next, because like Kirk's pretty cool. He can like move the robber, which is really like a Klingon battle cruiser or something. And I actually like it a lot better than Settlers of Catan. I'm a little bit like over Settlers of Catan. I'll play it if other people want to, but I'm not like, yay, Settlers. But Settlers of Catan is like, it's got that extra bit of fun, that extra bit of like, it's got the certain ethos and the powers that are like, you know, oh, I'm awesome because I'm Uhura and I can do this special thing.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, I think that's the thing though, right? Especially when you get a licensed game. Like, the point of the license is to enhance the game. So when you look at, like, Star Trek Attack Wing is a game that is built literally off of the flight path system, which X-Wing is built off of. They use pretty much the same mechanics.
And D&D,
but the license,
same. Dragon.
Exactly. But the license is what gives you the richness of the game, right? So when you play when you play, Star Trek Attack Wing, the richness of the game is the fact that there are more than 2 factions. So there are all of these races, and you have the ability to mix all these crews and play scenarios. And the real strength for me is the scenarios. The scenarios, when you buy the tiny little old school original Enterprise, the OS Enterprise, there's a scenario in the pack called the Kobayashi Maru. And it is impossible. It is literally
impossible.
There have been. Oh my gosh! I'm totally gonna record a video of me and my husband trying to beat this thing against each other. It is impossible. It is the point.
Kobayashi Maru is that Kirk cheats.
That it is, and that's exactly the point. So the idea is, the way we play it as a house rule is when you play the Kobayashi Maru, if you cheat and you get away with it, you get away with it. You can cheat when you play this game. So it's kind of like a.
Get up.
Yeah, right. So it's like an additional, like a meta rule,
right,
for the scenario.
That's what the Kobayashi Maru is about. I mean, it was invented.
Exactly, right?
So that first movie.
So that's the thing. And when I talk about Star Trek Attack Wing to people who love Star Trek, are kind of into board games or kind of too into, what I say to them is, the game itself it's a role-playing game. It is a game where they have the elements of the show and they bring those elements in the show, and the translation of the episode elements into game elements is what's interesting to me. So when you watched me talk about the videos of these cards that are coming out in a prize pack, I'm really looking at how does this particular episode depict this character, and does that ability translate in the game? And for me, it's really exciting when it does. So I love that kind of deal. And there are guys who they like the abilities, they're not necessarily like humongous Star Trek fans. They're looking more at, like, whether or not this character is super powerful and this character is not. That's not me. I'm more interested in is Damar drunk? Do I get a drunk Damar card? I really want a drunk Damar card, because I think drunk Damar is more interesting to me than a Damar that wins all the games. It could say Damar wins every game if played. Like, whatever. Not even interested.
So
I want to see the character.
We were having a debate on Twitter this morning on Board Game Hour, which is where we got some of the idea for Star Trek Hour, and it's which you introduced me to. I saw you do Board Game Hour, and I was like, "What's that?" And I started doing it. It was really fun. And it's basically just people talking about board games with a bunch of questions that a moderator gives.
Totally.
And it's today was a little bit of a confusing topic. It was about luck mitigation.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I know what luck is. I think I know what mitigation is. What's luck mitigation? And it wasn't really like clearly defined, but there were a lot of opinions about what luck mitigation is. Sort of turned into, okay, I'm getting drunk, so I'm going to lose my train of thought. But it was talking about something about, role playing. So people were talking about, like, why don't some gamers like luck? Why are they so against games that contain an element of luck? Why don't, what's the problem with luck? And is it just a vocal minority, or do most people feel this way? And a lot of people said, like, I'm part of that vocal minority, and it is a vocal minority. Some of us just don't like games that include luck or have too much luck. We like things to be based on strategy and where our choices are meaningful. And I was like, yeah, I'm not like that. I don't care. If someone's willing to play a board game with me, like, I'm down. Like, I'm just like, already won just by getting someone to play a game with me. And if I lose and they feel good, then I win again, because they're gonna want to play again. That's awesome. So smile when you lose. But like games of luck, it's fine as long as there's some kind of enjoyment, as long as it makes you laugh and makes you feel like you're having a good time with your friends, and maybe you're having a good time with the creator of the game, where it's like it's fun because they're putting you into a world. It's basically a role-playing game with more specific mechanics. And I'm more in the camp of, like, I just like the story. I just like the fantasy of it, and engagement of going through the motions of doing the game. And I don't expect to win. I'm not good at games. I just, I'm regular at them. Like, if I'm like, so Quirkle was an interesting one because I really did understand the strategy just by playing it more at home. And then when I brought it to my friends, I would win like 3 times in a row, and they'd be like, "I don't understand why you're winning so much. You're not that much smarter than me. Let's play again." And then I would keep winning, but the difference between the scores would gradually get evened out until it was pretty.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would start winning once they understood the strategy, and then somebody else would start winning once they understood the strategy. And now it's anyone. Now it's like amongst like the 4 regulars of us, it's anyone's game. In fact, some people are starting to pull ahead of me, and I'm trailing behind because I'm not as good at Quirkle as they are. But that's cool. It's like, as long as it's still, as long as we're still playing, I'm on board.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. Anyone who plays, okay, so
some people really like the optimization, the math.
Yeah, there are some people who totally do. I know a lot of guys, particularly on the internet, of course, right, who really enjoy the optimization of making what is essentially the perfect list. They win in the list, when I call the list building phase of the game, and that's what actually happens before you show up at a table to play. Not me. For me,
what's the list building phase?
Well, when you play a war game, you make oh nice. You gotta tell me how it is. You gotta tell me how it is.
This wine here, 12% alcohol. This is not. This is 4 or 5 kinds of alcohol, color, and it's gin. It's like 50%.
Oh my god.
And I have 2 of those.
Oh my gosh. But what I was gonna say was the list building phase is when people essentially, for wargamers, what we do is before we show up to a game, we actually have a list of the stuff we take, because think of it like your character sheet for D&D. Right? You have a character, you've built this character, this is your character, and when you show up to play your game, this is the character that you play, right? For wargamers, it's the same kind of deal. This is the list, this is the army that I'm going to show up with. Your army is going to be different than my army. That's fine, we can still play together. That's the phase. But in that list, you're usually bound by points. So it's like you have X number of points to spend. There's like an economic, there's an economy in there, and you buy, in Star Trek Attack, you essentially buy ships and upgrades on those ships, whether that's crew, tech upgrades, or weapons. And that whole list that you build, buying ships, buying crew, buying upgrades, is your list. It's the list you show up with at the table. And theoretically,
if I were just playing with my friends, how long does that take to set up? To buy?
Well, you build your list. If you know your stuff, like if you know which cards you have, it doesn't take long. It's maybe 10 minutes of looking at your stuff going, oh, I want to play this dude, this captain here, I'll take this upgrade here, I'll do this. Like, it's really easy. And if you're even a little bit familiar with, like, think of it kind of like, again, kind of another comparable thing to it is deck building for Magic the Gathering, except not nearly as in-depth, because you only have, like, 3 or 4 ships in any given game. So there's only X number of slots you can fill them with, and you have X number of points. You do math, 100 points, 120 points, depends on how big you want to play. So the game is like, the list building phase is, theoretically, your points are the same as my points, is in that the points you spend should be weighed the same in terms of game mechanics as the points I spend. There are certain cards whose economy, the points economy, is better, and there's certain cards that are the points economy is worse. And it's in that optimization where guys are finding what combinations makes for the best points economy. And that's where that list building phase kind of happens, where you build your list and you optimize this list to be a perfect list. I find that what happens is you have the crazy list builds that make no sense, that aren't as fun to play against, and aren't necessarily as fun to play because you know exactly how the game is going to go. For me, like, I've seen a lot of games where they'll take, like, one character, they'll cross eras, they'll cross like faction lines. They do all sorts of crazy stuff because they're optimizing their list. That's not as interesting to me. So I will honestly take lists that are really fun, that are really silly, or that are really, really just this is the theme that I have in my head for this list. So the idea is the theme of my list is drunk Klingons. Let's play a bunch of ships whose captains are notoriously drunk and see how that goes. And things that have character, things that are fun, things that are interesting. I'm more likely to play things that are built off of a particular episode. So again, when I talk about the Sisko Damar, Gul Dukat, kind of build, that to me is crazy interesting on a Klingon ship because that actually happened in an episode. Or like the Defiant crew on a freaking Jem'Hadar ship. What does that look like? How does that play?
Yeah.
Those are things that I like to do, and you can have fun playing the game any way you want as long as the people around you are playing in the same mindset. So if you have a lot of guys who like to play competitively, that's great. But if you like to play these fun kind of fluffy fiction based like source material kind of lists, it's great too. The joy of mini war games as a whole is really that you can play them the way you want to play them. You enjoy them the way you want to. And that's the best part. And that's why I was going to say, like, it surprised me that you don't play because it's a great 2-player game. And if you're a couple...
I literally just have so many of these still in plastic that I want to do unboxing videos for, and then I'm going to play them. It's just, there's so much. It's so
yeah.
awesome, and it's so hard to find time to play new ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I totally understand. I totally 100% understand. But for me, especially like I have a kid. I live in, right? I have a husband, so we play 2-player games because of that. Like the majority of the games that I play are games that I can play with 2 players because of the fact that.
How many days do you play board games or war games?
Pardon?
How many days a week, including home?
So if I were to say play, I maybe play 5 or 6 times a month. Not very many. If I were to talk about like doing hobby, like wargaming hobby stuff, so that includes like building and painting models, that's closer to 3 or 4 times a week. I carve out the time to actually do something.
Because you don't have anybody else to do that. You can just do it by
yourself. Yeah, I do it by myself. I can do it by myself. I'm starting to play more games at home, more and more now because I'm back to playing like smaller skirmish games again. So my husband and I can actually play those games. And again, any game where you only use 3 or 4 models, that's a perfect skirmish game. And I love it. I just love it because it's also a game that, this is the game, Star Trek Attack Wing is the game that I'm getting my daughter, and D&D Attack Wing because they're dragons, of course. They're the games that I'm getting my daughter into wargaming. Because you don't need to know inches. You don't have to try to measure perfectly. They have the template set out. And like the cards are so easy to read. They're like, if you understand what the colors mean, you're good to go. So it's something that I can do with a 6-year-old now, and I can't really do that with a lot of other war games anymore.
Yeah, I went to not San Diego. It was Emerald City Comic Con 2 weeks ago. And while I was up there, I took a bus to Portland to visit my college roommate and his family, and they love board games. They have like the guest room I was staying in, it was just full of board games in the closet, and we played games almost every day of some kind, and I learned a whole bunch of new ones that I didn't know before. And their kids loved them. They had kids that were like 3 and 5, I think, and they were really into board games. I was just like I don't have kids, but it's great to have a kid to play games with in the house.
Right? I mean, I think that's one of those things where, as a geek, one of the things that I can do is to give my passion to my child. And whether or not they take that passion and it becomes a part of them, or they use that fire that I give them to find a passion of their own.
That's nice. What are the chances of them following the same interest? I think it's like 80% chance. 20% chance to rebel and they hate whatever you love. and then 80% chance that they're just, yeah, that's cool, that's what I'm into, that's what we did in my
Yeah, I think part of it is, and I don't know how much of it is actually gonna rub off, right? So it's like my daughter has a passion for dinosaurs I've never had. We never like, and I know her real, like, it's currently her passion. It has been her passion for like 3 years. That's like half her life at this stage.
That doesn't mean she's a paleontologist, though. Dinosaurs to a kid are much different than dinosaurs to the same person later in life. Like, a lot of us see dinosaurs more as kids than as adults.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I mean,
But
Jurassic Park is the dinosaur toys for adults.
Yeah.
But without Jurassic Park, because it's not like they're making another one, but it looks kind of silly, and they don't make them that often. They're not that big a deal. Avengers is a big deal in culture. Like, dinosaurs are kid things, and I still don't know why, but they just are.
I don't know either. I think it's a monster thing, but I think when I talk to my daughter about it, like, it's not even like, when I talk to her about dinosaurs, it's not even about dinosaurs anymore. Like, I've given her structure, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this when I grow up. I'm like, okay, well, then you need to know about rocks, you need to know how sediments settle, you need to know about this, that, and the other thing. You have to learn your biology and all that stuff. And she's been doing it. Like, it's weird to see a kid pick up geology just because she loves dinosaurs.
Okay, so she's really Ross from Friends, Ross Geller.
Yeah, like, yeah, and I and whether, I don't know if this is going to be something she sticks with or not, but for me, I can give her a safe space, and I can model for her the behavior of passion and excitement in something that the mainstream doesn't necessarily understand or get, and show her that it is a safe space for her to do that. So whether it is dinosaurs, whether it is Star Trek, whether it is comic books or movies or anything else that is a geekdom.
So I just played this game in Portland with my friends called Zoo Loretto, and then there was a sequel called Aquaretto. And it's basically like you run a zoo. You get all these animals, and you put them in pens, and they breed, and they be baby animals. And it's actually it's really good for kids, and it's really good for adults. It's one of those games. It works at all ages. It's high strategy, but it's also like you do stuff, and it's cute. And then like Aquaretto's dolphins and stuff. But why isn't there a dinosaur board game? This is like an obvious thing. Like, it's a popular theme.
Right?
I can't think of a single.
And we buy a whole, like, the only thing I have is there's a game called Dinosaur Hunt, which is made by the same people who make Zombie Dice. And they use that mechanic of zombie bites.
All right.
And the idea is you're hunting dinosaurs, right?
That's the game we play when we're like, oh, the food's almost here. Let's play Zombie Dice for 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's play Zombie Dice for 10 minutes. There isn't anything that is really, I don't know, there isn't anything that is really as...
It's interesting. Because in board game art, they talk about, like, what theme do you wish would have more whatever the topic is, like luck mitigation or whatever it was last week.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think of themes where you're like, I don't know, there's Dungeons and Dragons theme, that's done to death. There's steampunk done to death. There's a million themes all done to death. What are the other themes? Like, what are the genres of the movie? They're all done, pretty much. Horror and stuff. But like, but that's a good one. Dinosaurs.
Well, again, like you said though, right? It feels saturated because growing up, you feel like there's tons of dinosaurs. And when you see in this toy section of the store, there are tons of dinosaurs. But it's not really an adult thing. It's interesting. When you say it like that, it's really interesting.
That's no excuse. There's plenty of board games that are targeted to kids. Because kids will play them, and adults will play them for the same reasons that the kids.
Joe, I think you just cursed us, though, because we're going to get like a huge deluge of terrible licensed Jurassic Park themed board games now.
You're right. The only dinosaur board game anybody would make is Jurassic Park.
Right. It's going to happen. But, like, I don't know. I think kind of going back to the idea of gaming and like Star Trek as a whole, like, one of the things that I do want to talk about is when I talk about the scenarios, the other thing that WizKids does, WizKids is the game maker who makes Star Trek Attack, is they release like every month they have like a little competitive event that they basically have the stores that sell their games run, and they have the little prize packs that I kind of show on my YouTube channel. But each of those, like a lot of those, are based on a specific. Actually, all of them are based on a specific episode of Star Trek. It's kind of like Star Trek Hour, actually. So the scenario itself is set up in the same storyline as an episode, which is really cool and interesting. And again, it's kind of like that.
Just as an example, what's tomorrow's Star Trek Hour episode that you picked?
So tomorrow's Star Trek Hour episode that I picked was House of Quark, which is the one where Quark inadvertently, to save his life, gets married to a lady of a great house, Lady Grilka, and has to save the honor of the house, essentially, which is really hilarious and really interesting, and it's a really fun kind of exploration of both the cultures. But just to give you another idea, like the last Star Trek Hour episode is Deja Q, right? The month 2 OP event for the Q Continuum, which is kind of like the series they're running now. This is month 1 of Q Continuum. What?
OP stands for what?
Organized play.
Organized play.
So it's the organized play event. So basically they organize, it's kind of like a mini tournament in stores. Essentially, next month for the Q Continuum event is going to be Deja Q. And they're using the scenario, like the actual situation with the planet, and you got to try to save the moon, and there's like Q out there. It's a mess. The scenario is really interesting because like you have a Q that's like an interloper into the event. Like it's really fun.
You have the other Q who comes in and he's like, "What is this? What are you doing here?"
Yeah. Yes. See, like, but that's the thing is you have these really interesting kind of like scenarios and games based off of that. And sometimes the prize packs are wholly kind of like built into the episode that they're talking about. So, and sometimes they're just not. Sometimes they're like, so for the Deja Q event, the prize ship is a Klingon ship. It makes literally no sense at all. I told the guys from Star Trek Attack that I would show one of the cards, spoiler card. I'll give you an actual look at the ship. It's like a, let me see here. It's a Klingon ship.
You know the publishers now?
I just kind of preview this stuff. The WizKids guys are really nice to me, and so I'm super glad about it. I'll put a photo up on Tumblr. But it's just a Burrell class ship. It's a Klingon ship. Exactly how many Klingons showed up in Deja Q, Joe? Since we just watched it last week.
Well, Worf was there. He said something.
Worf doesn't count. Okay, how many Klingons?
Yep. Zero.
How many Klingon ships were there? 0. There were like no Klingons. Yet this prize pack is a Klingon prize pack, and like, so for me, when I see like the prize packs, I see them separate as like the expansions, because these prize packs, part of the joy of the prize pack is that you can essentially get the expansion packs in the store. You can buy them wherever. The prize pack is that you can only win them. The idea is you can only win them, and that's what makes them exclusive and interesting.
So if
you
I
can't buy them.
If I find a store that's doing the OP thing, which is organized, and do I bring my own set, or do they have it all?
You bring your own set of like 3 ships or whatever, and built by their rules, which is like 100 or 120 points. Usually they'll take pretty much anything because you're buying from them. Sometimes they do sealed where you have to like buy an expansion from them to be like as your entry, which is a good way to kind of grow your collection as well. But it's pretty free form. Depends on where you are. But you get a chance to win this prize pack. Even if you show up, you don't win, you always get like this cool card, which kind of helps you no matter what, and it's kind of like a universal card. They have this, like, just an example.
Around me.
What?
There's a bunch of game stores around me. I might want to look.
Yeah, you should totally check it out. Ask them about it, because I mean, so like they have this damage control team. This is like they call it the participation prize. And let me see if I can get this focused up here so people can actually read it. There it is. This card explains the damage stuff. Basically, you can repair stuff on your ship. even if you don't win, this is kind of like a participation prize. You get this, you can play it in any of your games, and it gives you special rules that would otherwise like be impossible, essentially, that to break the game. I can kind of read it. Basically, you just can. There's ways to repair your ship, which is just cool. And
So
that's the sort of thing that you can do.
when you played with Garrett Wong, who played Ensign Kim on Voyager,
Yeah.
we have a YouTube video of that we could put a link in the show notes. The my impression was that you gave him Picard's Enterprise, and you took some little dinky Ferengi ship because you're being nice. He's never played before, and you want to give him a really good shot. And surprise, surprise, Picard won. And I was kind of like watching the thing, like, well, that's nice of her, but I don't really understand the point of this combat as a game. Where it's a joke, the Ferengi, you know, after their first actual appearance, where you find out that they're just clowns and they're not really venomous monsters, they're not scary. No one runs from a Ferengi.
One of the things that's really interesting, and again, it's like about that role-playing element. So one of the things about the Ferengi is they're exceedingly good at avoiding combat. So I had a bunch of upgrades that I didn't actually use against Garrett on that Ferengi ship. That allowed me to do things like, yeah, you get to attack me for a turn, except you don't. You don't get to attack me for a turn. I don't get to attack you back, but you don't get to attack me this turn. And it allows me to maneuver around and get around, and that's kind of an yeah. So it's kind of like an element to the way that the Ferengi play. So another example is the Borg. The Borg, if you look at the way that like any of these ships move, they have like various arrows that let them turn and stuff. When you actually play a Borg ship, the Borg cubes do not move in any turns or anything like that. They go straight lines. The Borg move in 90-degree angles on the table. It's just another little kind of like hat tip to the show. Yeah. Like there's a mechanic that only cloaking races have. It's called cloaking. Their ships can cloak. Yeah. Klingons have it. Romulans have it. The Defiant has it. One of the Dominion ships has it.
Defiant had it for a little while, but it was
exactly right. So they used it. So like there are different kind of mechanics to cloaking. That's something that isn't in X-Wing at all. But the way they capture the flavor of each race is what makes it really interesting and unique. So the Klingons are all attack, all cloak. They don't have any shields. They don't really have any, like, their ships aren't super tough. They don't have shields though. Klingons don't have shields. Where do you put why do you need shields when you have guns, right? The best defense is a good offense, right? Like, that's the idea. The Federation is a pretty balanced kind of list, right?
I guess I don't love games that are about collecting, like, that are expensive things where you buy pieces and you just keep buying and buying and buying. It just feels like magic. It just feels like, you never stop buying the stuff. And Zombicide's a little bit like that, but you don't have to be buying.
You don't have, and that's the thing about Star Trek Attack Wing too, though. You don't have to buy. Once you have, basically, what I say is, like, the starter set is like $40 or $50. You get 3 expansions on top of it. You have a fleet, a race, an entire race. That's decent, very good. Like 3 ships will get you a very long ways. In most of the big races, Romulans, you get 3 or 4 ships, you're fine. Federation, you get 3 or 4 ships, you're fine. You don't need everything else. And if you're playing just for fun, that's all really. Like, you kind of, for me, when I pick up any war game, it's not about buying the stuff I feel like I have to be compelled to buy. It's about me buying the things that seem fun and interesting. So, like, I bought a Borg cube because I just wanted to have a Borg cube. I never play it. I lit it up. I cut it open and I lit it up.
I saw your videos, decorated it. It was really cool.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to have one. I will never play that ship. And
why? No good?
It's really good. It's the Borg, of course. It's amazing. Oh my god, the Borg are ridiculously amazing.
Is it not the opponent?
I think the Borg are probably one of the ire of competitive gamers. But it's just, Of course, they're the Borg. They kill everything. One Borg cube just destroyed an entire Federation fleet, right?
Did you? So you did have a chance. You sort of were going easy on him because he was new. Like even with the Ferengi little crappy ship, you still could have like had a good chance.
I had a decent chance at it. Yeah, and I mean, I could have evaded him. I had a like that build. They're kind of equal points, about 50 points, I think, is what I built for him. I didn't like for the sake of time, because there was some issues with trying to get him back to the con on time. There was like all this other surrounding stuff that was like really challenging.
It was just
so we didn't really try to lengthen the game out. But like if you actually look at the way those things are built, it was a comparable fight, and it could go either way.
I understand it because I was just watching as a newbie, and I was like, "Oh wow, Terry met Garrett. That's cool." But then I saw the ships, and I'm like, "The card versus a Ferengi. That's just happened. We know the outcome.
Yeah. We know the outcome." But there are some really great Ferengi upgrades now out there too. Like there are great Ferengi ships with great and fluffy Ferengi upgrades that are also really devastating. So, do you remember the episode where Quark's cousin Gala gave him the ship that had the bomb in it?
No,
you had one of those.
Cousin Gala is an arms dealer and has a lot of weapons.
Cousin Gala gave Quark a ship. I think they called it Quark's Bounty. And there was an upgrade in that upgrade set where you get like the little bomb thing that does a lot of damage. And like that's the sort of stuff that for me I find cute, but it's also really devastating. Those are good upgrades. And if you play them smart and you play them right, you have a really good chance. And I think for me it's the same reason why I love the Ferengi. There's only one ship mold they've ever made of it, so every ship looks the same, the Jakar class. But when it comes to the Ferengi as from a play standpoint, it's an evasive kind of fleet. So when people talk about luck mitigation, the Ferengi are kind of like a good mix of luck and generalship. You don't ever really win in the list building phase with Ferengi. There's too much chance. Too much chance. It's so much of it is dependent on your opponent, so much is dependent on how they've built their list. But when you get on the table with them, there's enough stuff that mitigates what your opponent does no matter what, that you have the opportunity to be in a better maneuver, be in the right position to take advantage of better movement, and even though you're not the best shooters and even though you don't have the greatest shields and weapons and all that stuff, you still have a chance. And I like that. I think that's fun. I like the idea of, and maybe this is just the kind of gamer I am. I prefer coming and trying to overcome odds rather than feeling like I've got it in the bag when I first start playing. I would rather have a game where I'm trying to overcome something that's much more challenging. I think the victory is more rewarding and the defeat is less painful when I play that way.
So let me ask you something else. It's 8:01, and I know that you probably have to go and do stuff because we're officially over time. But there was this thing that happened. Do you have a couple minutes?
Yeah, totally.
So in Board Game Hour, like a week or two ago, people were talking about dice. We're talking about mechanics of pieces, of what kinds of physical objects you use in a board game. And they talked about thematic connections between the components and the story. And people were saying, well, how would you even do that with dice? It doesn't really work. There's lots of games where they kind of fudge the art and they add little dice symbols so that there's a dice component, but it's really just a fantasy world or a medieval world or whatever. But and I just threw out like, oh, well, if it's pyramids, then it's the Egyptian pyramids and their magic or something. But if it's regular 6-sided dice, then it's board cubes. And people were like, oh my God, that's genius, board cubes. And I was like, I guess I have to make a dice game about board cubes. And they're like, I would totally buy a dice game about board cubes. And I was like,
WizKids, are you listening? WizKids makes a bunch of dice games actually. So maybe might come.
Following you, then maybe they'll hear this. But I wanted to
Right?
pick your brain as a gamer, which
Mhm.
you're not a game designer, but you are a person who thinks about game design. Put on your game design hat. How in the world would you come up with a game about the board where you roll dice, and the dice are board cubes? They have sides. They don't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They could be any sides you want, but they're board cubes. And so it's the perfect melding of game physicality with theme, because it's not Star Trek, it's board Star Trek. And it's rolling dice to see what's up with your board cubes. Presumably, you're Borg here. Maybe it's a Borg Civil War. Maybe it's Borg. Maybe you're Borg in competition to assimilate civilizations. Maybe that's your resource or something.
Okay, so the simple least resistant path is, and this is gonna sound so, because we just talked about it. It's zombie dice with assimilation, man. That's what that is.
So you have races that resist, races that don't resist,
Mhm.
kind of resist.
You roll your cubes up, and you have and you try to get races the way that you collect brains, and you have shotguns the way that people resist. Oh no, it's a Ferengi Bat'leth. Blah.
Third game in the whole world.
Borg are weak to Ferengi or to Klingon Bat'leths. We know this.
Not like zombies. They're exactly like zombies. They just convert people to their way of being.
Right, right.
Okay.
I hope I didn't ruin the concept. But like,
what else though? How do you make zombie dice mechanically different so that it's more Borg-like? Because I agree with you that you can start with zombie dice, because that's a dice. There's nothing else.
It's a dice game. But like, even I don't know. Even when it comes to the problem with the Borg is the.
Well, while you think, I'm going to explain zombie dice. So zombie dice is where there's a couple different kinds of dice with different chances of whether each die is a person who you as a zombie want to eat their brains. And when you roll the dice, some of the dice will show that the person ran away. Some of the dice will show that you ate their brain. And some of the dice will show that they shot you with a shotgun. And if you get 3 shotguns, then you get no brains that round. If you don't get 3 shotguns, you get a whole bunch of brains, you get to keep those brains. And it's a competition for who has the most brains. So it's zombies in competition to eat the most brains without getting shot. And Terry's suggesting that you could apply the same general idea to the Borg, because aren't Borg basically zombies anyway? And don't they basically just eat brains? And you could roll dice and make them look like Borg cubes, but make the sides represent success or failure or try or fail. That's exactly the same mechanic as zombie dice. So my question now for Terry, as a Star Trek board gamer, is how can you make that mechanic with the theme of Borg even more Borg-like, where the dice are not quite the same mechanics as zombie dice. They're they're different from just other zombie dice, but also they remind you of the Borg. You feel like you are the Borg when you're trying to roll these dice. Like, you're the Borg queen. She's the only one with a personality.
Yeah.
And you're sending your drones. So each of these things is a drone because it's a Borg cube. It's not a civilization to conquer. It's a cube. And that's the whole point of the idea. So then each of your cubes has a characteristic. It has a random result as you roll a die. Is that characteristic success and failure? Or what else happens to Borg? Sometimes Borg get fucked up. Sometimes they get converted into like individuals.
Like Hugh?
Like Hugh. Like Hugh and all of those idiots who followed lore. Like, we follow the one. And you're like, huh?
Huh?
Are you in a cult, man? And they're like, yes, I'm in a cult. And they shoot you. You're not Borg at all. You're just idiots with cyborg implants. I don't know if
but
it's
like,
6, but it's certainly a possibility.
I don't know. I think about... The problem with it is, as cool as the component is, and the component is cool for a number of the reasons, specifically because the Borg are cool as a race. The component is cool because the Borg are cool. The problem with the game is the game has no inherent conflict because the Borg have no inherent conflict.
Are you sure? I'm sure there's an inherent conflict. From the Borg's point of view, there must be something that they really want.
It could be a Unimatrix Zero kind of Unimatrix 1 Civil War kind of thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
That might be interesting, but then they're not Borg anymore.
No, but they are. They're the Borg that are rebelling. They're the rebellion.
No.
They're the Seven of Nine led rebellion of individuals against.
With the really cool Klingon.
What do they call it?
The assimilated Klingon, dude.
Yeah. What's the group called? The Collective.
The Collective.
So the Collective is like the evil team, and Seven of Nine is the good team. They did that. That was a story.
It was a story, a good story.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I just when I think about how closely linked that component is as a cube, as a physicality of the Borg, it's just like, what do the Borg do? They assimilate, so we can do it as zombie dice, or we could do it as Farkle, or we could do it as all these other variations of dice games.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I find it hard to base it around a cube where that is the key component, because I feel like Unimatrix, like, you know, that adventure is a role-playing adventure. That's not a dice game anymore.
Uh-huh.
There's something more interesting there that cannot be encompassed in 6 dice or a 6-sided.
I think I'd have to play that game. What's the game where you roll dice and they are the dice are the ships and they take over planets and stuff? There's a game like that. It's not not Eclipse. There's another one where the dice are the ships and you go to these different galaxies or something, or different solar systems,
Mm-hmm.
inhabit different star systems with dice. I forgot the name. I think I should do that first before I think about this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities. If you are watching this and you have an idea for a cool board game with Borg dice, throw it in the comments, because I kind of want to see it. I want to see what you guys have to come up with that, because that seems like a really interesting game concept. So yeah, that's
I'm looking to produce this game. I have no real ambitions to make games, but like
mm-hmm.
I just like talking about it. I just think it would, if WizKids wants to go ahead and make it, like, you know, that's cool.
WizKids has. See, here's the thing. I always talk to I talk about WizKids, and I should say it like this because I talk to WizKids in my videos. Like, I talk to them, like, WizKids, please do this, and hope that they actually do it, because they have the license. They have all these game licenses. They're really great. Like, the Marvel Dice Battles mechanics might be the perfect place to have a Star Trek license in there, the way you've described it. You know, WizKids, please do something like this and have like a professional game designer actually do it, make it.
Dice Masters, where each die is a super villain.
Boom! See?
Yeah.
Boom!
So that's
Dice Masters, man.
So Dice Masters is all about individuals, though. They're all different. And are Borg different from each other, or are most of them pretty much the same?
Star Trek Attack Wing has been able to characterize specific Borg characters in cards, right? So there are a couple 7 of 9 cards.
Yeah, well,
there's
you got 7
the Locutus. There's the super cool, like, Klingon who was in Unimatrix 1, who's assimilated. There's 7 of 9's love interest from the Unimatrix 1. There's the Queen. There is Data. There is Lore. There is... you could make a small mini game of it, at least. It's possible. I think you'd have to expand it eventually.
Yeah,
but
once you explore the Borg as individuals, and you're like, there's 7 story characters who are not Borg. I mean, Hugh became a leader of a rebellion, and then there were guys in the rebellion who were all suspiciously human Caucasian male looking, but whatever. That's most of the Borg rebellion. But they were not Borg anymore. They were just dressed like Borg. And they had names.
Yeah. Did.
I don't know.
Make that up.
There's
There's
something.
got to be some expanded universe stuff out there about those Borg guys too. I know.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at expanded universes in general, but I know there's got to be some stuff out there about that.
The novels, the Star Trek novels.
Yeah.
What have you read?
Well, I've read. Oh, gosh. James Swallow did one. In the DS9 universe. That's actually pretty decent. I read it after I met him, and he talked about it, and I was like, oh, well, you wrote a Star Trek novel, and you're one of my favorite Black Library novelists. Well, I have to read it now. I can't even remember the title anymore. But I'm terrible about keeping up with stuff like that. I was never really good at.
There's a lot of it.
Oh, there's so much of it, and it's the problem about it for me is the quality is so variable. And I guess that's what happens with any expanded universe stuff is the quality is so variable. You have to follow an author, you can't follow a story. Because that's where if you follow it's kind of like the difference between DC and Marvel. That's kind of how I describe it. When I tell people when you read Marvel, you follow a character. When you read DC, you follow an author. And that's how you'll get the best out of each kind of label. So
reminds me instead of following a subject in college. Just go to the good teachers. Whatever they have to teach, I don't care. I don't care what the subject is. As long as it's a good teacher, I'll listen. That's all I care about.
Right. All right. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Yay.
All right. We should wrap up. It's 8:15 almost.
8:15. So oh my gosh.
Tomorrow.
Will Sanchez.
Star Trek Hour.
Delta Angel Fire.
What?
Threw up some Delta Angel Fire. Will Sanchez, who is probably one of the best competitive Star Trek Attack Wing players, just threw up some suggestions for your board game there, Joe. So you should totally check him out.
YouTube comments.
Yeah, in the comments.
Oh, I didn't look. I looked at the Q&A thing. Google has too many different ways to. Oh, there's a lot of comments. Oh, it's mostly Delta Angel Fire.
Yeah, it's Will. Will's awesome like that.
Oh wow, he's basically designed the whole thing. Board game, King of New York, rethemed with Borg dice, attack, assimilate, adapt, regenerate. Oh my God, he's got it down. Be the most evolved collective cube to become the new queen's favorite. Just like.
I love that.
Dinosaurs. Whoa, he's been all over this thing. Starfarers of Catan is way more interesting than regular Catan.
I've actually played Starfarers of Catan. I can't help
I don't know what that is.
Starfarers of Catan is like a Star Trek or a space version of Star Wars. The problem is they had these rocket ships that you would shake. So this is the motion you would make of a rocket ship shaped like thing.
Like a shake weight.
Like a shake weight.
Like a shake weight.
Will, you gotta talk to me about this rocket ship here, because
wait.
Literally, you would shake this thing and they would tell you what the colors were at the bottom, and you moved your starship based on whatever that was. It was really awkward. It wasn't a game I felt comfortable playing with my family. It was. We owned a copy of that game. We loved it, but yeah, the rocket ship, man. Every time you couldn't not make penis jokes. Oh yeah, now you know my deep dark secret about Starfarers of Catan.
That it's inherently full of penis jokes.
Inherently full of penises.
And on that note, so tomorrow we're going to talk on Star Trek Hour at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Talking
with the Star Trek
about the House of Quark.
It's
going to be a good episode.
Follow the
haven't seen it.
The Star Trek Hour hashtag and the Star Trek Hour Twitter account will be posting questions about the episode. And we'll be answering those questions ourselves based on our perspectives, and various other people will be joining in. So feel free to join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on Twitter. 1 p.m. Pacific Time on Twitter.
1 p.m. Pacific Time. It's a hoot. Anytime we can talk about side boob window cleavage things on Klingon women, it's always a good time. That's what I find.
We talk a lot about fashion and about
remarkably
about exposure body parts on Star Trek.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for us. I guess that's time.
Yep.